Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening the throttle on the chaotic, brilliant, and fiercely uncompromising career of a true American original, Neill Kirby McMillan Jr.
Right.
A man better known to the world as Mojo Nixon.
And we're diving into the history here, looking at someone who, well, built his whole reputation on just refusing the rules. Celebrity, the music industry. He wasn't having it.
Yeah.
His professional path, it's really a masterclass in holding these anti-establishment views, but somehow still operating successfully within the very corporate structures he wanted to tear down.
It's fascinating. Our sources today, they really give us the full picture. A cultural provocateur, a master of satire, blending genres, and making sure that, well, no celebrity, no politician, no institution was really safe from his songs.
Exactly. Our mission today is to trace how this psychobilly musician evolved, became this multimedia cult hero. We need to understand how he navigated his career, keeping that reputation for relentless, often controversial, and, let's be honest, pretty hilarious attacks on the whole pop culture machine.
Right. So if you need like an initial snapshot of the Mojo Nixon universe before we really dive in, there are three defining things you got to know. First, the sound. That psychobilly genre, that raw kind of sped up mix of like 50s rockabilly structure mashed with punk rock speed and aggression.
Yeah. And second, the song that really put him on the map globally, that anti-pop novelty anthem, Elvis Is Everywhere, it was huge on alternative stations, MTV. It really cemented his place.
Totally. And third, that ultimate career pivot later on, becoming this beloved, though still totally irreverent satellite radio host on SiriusXM.
The Loon in the Afternoon.
Exactly. The Loon in the Afternoon on Outlaw Country. So that's the whole landscape of anarchy we're going to unpack.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start at the beginning. The source of the sound, the psychobilly foundations, and that really essential early partnership he had with Skid Roper.
Okay.
So, Neill Kirby McMillan Jr., born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, August 2nd, 1957, started his music journey in Danville, Virginia, then headed west out to the alternative scene in San Diego.
And what's interesting there is how fast he seemed to find his lane. People throw terms around like rockabilly, cowpunk, but the specific thing he helped define was psychobilly.
Yeah.
So for listeners who maybe haven't spent time with that genre, what is psychobilly exactly? And why was it like the perfect fit for his brand of anger and humor?
Well, psychobilly is. It's a beautiful mess, really. Structurally, you've got the classic slapback bass, the reverb heavy guitar from rockabilly.
Right.
But then you inject this relentless, super high-tempo drumming, the raw energy of punk rock, and crucially, the themes often mix in horror, sci-fi, general social transgression. It's inherently not commercial music.
No way.
It's too fast, it's too loud, lyrically it's way too dark or satirical for mainstream radio. So Nixon, with that booming voice and his satirical rants, he was the perfect frontman because the music itself rejected that clean, polished pop sound just as much as his words did.
And starting out, he needed someone to play off of musically. He found Skid Roper in San Diego, early 80s. And looking at how they worked together, it was always Nixon's personality, his lyrics that were front and center. Roper's role was, well, pretty specific. Just minimalist backup, right?
Totally. Minimalist is the word. Often the stage setup was just Roper on guitar, maybe banjo sometimes, and perhaps like a basic drum machine.
Wow.
And that minimalism was actually genius because it forced you, the listener, to focus completely on Nixon's lyrics. Roper wasn't there to compete with him. He was there to provide this frantic, stripped-down foundation for whatever rant Mojo was on. It was perfect for this kind of anti-commercial lyrical theater.
Their first album, 1985, on Enigma Records, that kind of set the stage. The first single, Jesus at McDonald's, right away.
Right out the gate.
Injecting irreverent humor into two of America's sacred cows, religion and fast food consumerism.
And being on Enigma was important then. Enigma was a pretty significant indie label. It gave them enough distribution to get their counterculture stuff heard, got them onto compilations like Rat Music for Rat People. So they kind of had one foot in the underground, but also one foot stepping towards, wider recognition.
But the moment it all just blew up was their 1987 album Bodacious, and that gave us the ultimate rock and roll religious text, Elvis Is Everywhere.
That's the one. That's the track that defined him.
Yeah.
It secured him a spot in the whole alternative music zeitgeist and, ironically, got him tons of airplay on MTV.
Which is wild.
The song's brilliant because it takes Elvis, this deceased pop icon and makes him this omnipresent God figure.
And Nixon immediately ran with that concept, adding his own unique kind of Southern fried absurdity, declaring his personal religious trinity. It wasn't just Elvis.
No. It was Elvis Presley, Foghorn Leghorn, and Otis Campbell, the town drunk from Mayberry.
It's almost profound sociology disguised as a joke.
It really is. By putting the king next to this cartoon rooster known for being loud and bombastic and a fictional drunk, Nixon was celebrating these American archetypes while totally mocking how seriously we take celebrity worship.
Yeah.
The message is pretty clear. The only real gods in America are, fictional, flawed, or just really loud.
And that desire to just lampoon contemporary celebrities, that became the absolute core of the Skid Roper era. He was like a ruthless sniper targeting the manufactured pop machine.
Relentless is the word.
Right.
Think about who he went after. The classic MTV establishment figure, VJ Martha Quinn and Stuff in Martha's Muffin.
Right.
And then that double-barreled attack on the whole late 80s teen pop industry. Rick Astley and Debbie Gibson. And Debbie Gibson is pregnant with my two-headed love child.
And here's where the intense irony of his career really starts showing up. The video for Debbie Gibson is pregnant. Who's in it?
Yeah.
Winona Ryder,
Yeah.
who is starring with Nixon in the 1989 movie Great Balls of Fire.
See, that's the ultimate act of subversive complicity. He uses the Hollywood connections he's making, the system he supposedly hates, to amplify a song mocking the very culture Hollywood creates.
It's genius marketing dressed up as anarchy. But his anti-establishment critiques weren't just about pop stars. He went after basic societal structures, too. Songs like I Hate Banks and that huge anti-consumer anthem, Burn Down the Malls.
Those tracks are really key to understanding the depth of his satire. Burn Down the Malls isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a specific jab at corporate sameness, consumer culture.
Right.
He was basically telling people to reject the idea that you could buy your identity inside some air-conditioned shopping center. And then, just to throw you off balance, you get the total surrealism of the amazing Bigfoot diet. He never let the listener get comfortable.
And that natural instinct to bite the hand feeding him led to a very public showdown with the biggest tastemaker back then, MTV.
Yep.
They decided they wouldn't air the Debbie Gibson is pregnant video, said it was too inflammatory.
And Nixon, he didn't blink, just cut ties with the network. He chose, artistic freedom and provocation over the massive reach MTV could offer. That move, so early in his career, it cemented his reputation as genuinely anti-corporate. He walked away on principle. His fans remembered that.
Okay, before we leave the Skid Roper era completely, there's this one deep-cut detail we have to mention. It just perfectly shows how he merged satire with this kind of meta-commentary. The B-side to Elvis Is Everywhere.
Oh, yeah. 619-239 King.
Exactly.
Pure Mojo brilliance. The track actually included a real working phone number.
It did.
It was his direct, playful response to all those conspiracy theories going around then that Elvis was secretly still alive. Nixon was basically daring the king to call him up and leave a message. It's like this low-tech, anarchic piece of interactive performance art hidden around a B-side. It let the audience kind of participate in the whole rumor mill.
So we move into the 1990s, and the provocation, it doesn't stop. If anything, it ramps up. Nixon and Roper split in late 89. And Mojo didn't waste any time. His solo debut, Otis, came out in 1990.
And Otis gave us what might be his most notorious solo track ever. Don Henley Must Die. This wasn't just satire anymore. This was like an aggressive public demand.
Okay, and this is where the industry power dynamics get really fascinating. We know the song was super controversial. Our sources say it caused such a fuss that his own record company, Enigma, was actually begging radio stations not to play it.
Think about that. That's the definition of a commercially disruptive artist. A record label asking DJs not to play their own product because they're worried about lawsuits or just offending people.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Totally.
But the way the whole Henley incident resolved itself, it's legendary and just deeply ironic. The guy he's singing should drop dead, Don Henley. He hears about it. Yeah. And on July 31st, 1992, at the Hole in the Wall in Austin, Texas, Henley walks on stage.
No way!
And performs the song with Mojo Nixon.
That's unbelievable. What does that tell you? About Henley, about Nixon?
Well, it says Henley was either incredibly smart or just supremely confident. He completely turned the controversy around by just leaning into the joke, right? He stole Mojo's thunder. And Nixon, always quick, was totally won over. Praised Henley for having balls as big as church bells. But then, immediately, classic Mojo, he couldn't resist, asked the crowd, "Is Debbie Gibson here too?" Always had to bring it back to the pop machine.
Incredible. But even with that, like, artistic win and that personal high point, commercially, things immediately went south for his back catalog.
He sure did. Just months after Otis came out, Enigma Records went bankrupt. And this wasn't just a small bump, it was a disaster. The whole legal situation around his early work, the Skid Roper stuff, Otis got thrown into total chaos. His music was stuck in legal limbo for years while they sorted out the bankruptcy.
Wow.
The ultimate anti-establishment guy gets completely sidelined by the financial messiness on the fringes of the establishment itself.
So after Enigma collapsed, Nixon just kept going, working relentlessly, often with a backup band called the Toadlickers, jumping between different indie labels all through the 90s.
And the controversial songs kept coming, keeping pace with the times. He had this amazing knack for tuning into American absurdity and whatever was happening in the news, like Orenthal James, who was a mighty bad man. Clearly a satirical take on the whole O.J. Simpson saga.
Right. But if Don Henley Must Die tested the limits of roasting a celebrity, his next big target really tested the limits of distributor power.
Explain that. Why was Bring Me the Head of David Geffen even more inflammatory than the Henley track? Yeah. What was the power difference between Henley and Geffen in the music industry then?
That's a really crucial point. Henley was a huge artist, sure. But David Geffen, with Geffen Records and his other ventures, he was a mogul, a gatekeeper for the entire industry.
Okay.
Targeting Henley was, artistic commentary. Targeting Geffen, that was like attacking the industry's plumbing. And our sources confirm Bring Me the Head of David Geffen ended up relegated to a B-side collection because of intense pressure from album distributors.
Not the label this time.
No. It was a logistical backbone. The company's actually shipping the CDs to stores they refused to carry it. It really showed that the real power wasn't just in the corporate suites, it was also in that distribution network. And this era also gave us tracks that pushed lyrical boundaries into, frankly, genuinely shocking territory. We have to mention, just for the full picture of his anarchy, songs like Tie My Pecker to My Leg, which contains stuff referencing bestiality, incest, coprophilia, pretty extreme.
That track is kind of the ultimate flip side to his political wit. It shows the whole spectrum of his need to provoke. On one hand, you get brilliant, sharp political satire. On the other, you get pure, unfiltered shock value designed to test everyone's tolerance, the listeners, the industries, maybe even the laws. It wasn't always subtle. Sometimes the goal was just pure transgression.
Okay, moving away from the extremes for a second. The 90s also saw him really solidify his place within that punk and outlaw country scene through collaborations. He did Prairie Home Invasion with the ultimate anarchist Jello Biafra.
Yeah, that was a perfect philosophical pairing. And you also see him working with Dave Alvin and frequently with guys from the Beat Farmers like Buddy Blue Segal. These connections really reinforce his identity as this kind of outlaw figure who was embraced by the, alternative music elite.
And that connection to his peers led to a really poignant tribute after the tragic death of his close friend, Country Dick Montana from the Beat Farmers.
Yeah, Montana died right on stage in 1995. It was a huge blow to that whole scene. And Nixon paid tribute to him on his 1999 album, The Real Sacre Blue. It's just a necessary reminder that behind all the chaos and satire, Nixon was deeply loyal and really embedded in this specific supportive music community.
What's truly amazing about Mojo Nixon, though, is that his career was never just going to be contained by the music industry. Even when he tried to quit, he was fully committed to being this multi-platform cultural disruptor.
He was a persona first, really. And that persona just translated seamlessly to other mediums.
Yeah.
His first jump into film was that debut acting role in '89, playing drummer James Van Eaton in the Jerry Lee Lewis biopic, Great Balls of Fire.
Right. Playing a drummer in a rock and roll period piece makes sense. But then he followed that up with some really unexpected roles in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. He was in 5 other movies, and the variety is just wild. He played Toad in that famously bizarre Super Mario Bros. Movie in '93.
Toad.
Think about that arc. From Psychobilly ranter attacking MTV to playing a mushroom-headed creature in a huge studio movie based on a video game. Then he pops up as a sidewalk preacher in Car 54, Where Are You? In '94. He clearly used his notoriety to get into Hollywood and then just picked the weirdest parts he could find.
And his voice, that distinct voice, found a perfect home in the growing video game world, too. 1997, he voiced Sheriff Lester T. Hobbs, a recurring bad guy in the computer game Redneck Rampage.
That character was basically just an extension of the Mojo Nixon persona, right? This angry, kind of unhinged Southern archetype. The synergy was perfect, especially because the game's soundtrack, which was licensed Psychobilly stuff, also featured 2 of his own songs. He was integrating his brand across music, film, interactive media, maximizing his cultural reach.
But the ultimate career pivot, really, was radio. That gave him a daily stage for his quick wit, his irreverent takes, moving those anarchic rants from song lyrics into actual conversation.
He started out as a regular DJ in the late 90s, learning the ropes in San Diego and Cincinnati. But satellite radio, with its niche channels and, frankly, its willingness to embrace edgier stuff, it was practically made for him.
And by 2008, he was a genuine fixture on Sirius Satellite Radio, which became SiriusXM. He was hosting 3 different shows, each tapping into a different part of his personality. The Loon in the afternoon on Outlaw Country was his main gig.
And the Loon became so popular because he brought that totally unfiltered, anti-Nashville attitude to the country format. It wasn't just playing records. It was like this daily celebration of country's counterculture, always loaded with his commentary and personal stories.
And then he had 2 other completely different shows. The NASCAR-themed Mojo Nixon's Manifold Destiny over on the NASCAR radio channel, and the political show Lion Cocksuckers on the Raw Dog Comedy channel.
And this is key, I think. It shows the incredible width of his appeal. He could talk to the outlaw music crowd, the hardcore race fans, and the politically cynical audience all in the same week. That political show, Lion Cocksuckers, was exactly what it sounded like. Unfiltered, definitely not partisan, but very politically charged. He was basically delivering the same kind of anarchic rants he used to put in songs. He even took on an admin role. Started in 2005 as a general manager on the Sirius Howard 100 channel.
He really did become kind of a media mogul for the outlaw world, but we absolutely have to talk about the weirdest footnote on his entire resume, the Olympic oddity. He went from attacking MTV to being the honorary captain of the United States luge team.
This is one of those facts that just makes you stop and say, what? It's so incredibly Mojo Nixon. 1998, he gets named honorary captain for the U.S. luge team at the Winter Olympics. How does a psychobilly rocker end up giving advice to luge athletes?
It's the ultimate collision, right? High-speed corporate sports and lowbrow punk rock.
Exactly. And of course, he couldn't just take the title. He had to immediately capitalize on the absurdity by writing a song about it. He got members of the Beat Farmers together and even convinced Luger Gordon Shear, who was competing in men's doubles, to play drums on the track.
Get out.
Yeah. The song was Luge Team USA.
And the band name they used was just the perfect, ridiculous mashing of themes, the Arctic Evil Nivels.
It just perfectly illustrates his whole approach. He takes this random, highly official, corporate-adjacent thing like the Olympics and twists it into pure punk rock absurdity. He used the platform not to endorse the games, but to make a joke about the very idea of a guy like him being involved in elite winter sports.
So despite all that energy across different platforms, Nixon did officially retire from music in 2004, marked his last live show March 20th that year, Continental Club in Austin.
But, the retirement didn't stick, which kind of proves some people are just born to store things up. His first little comeback was in 2006, and it was purely to support Kinky Friedman, fellow musician running for governor of Texas.
And his quote explaining why he came back is just pure Mojo poetry. He said, "If supporting Kinky for governor is what it takes to drag my ass out of retirement, consider my ass dragged."
He always had a line, didn't he?
Yeah.
But the full unretirement happened a few years later, October 2009. He announced a new album, Whiskey Rebellion, claimed it was a collection of unreleased tracks he found in a shoebox full of old cassettes under his porch.
Which is a charmingly low-key origin story for a comeback record.
Totally.
But the way he promoted Whiskey Rebellion, that's where he tied his art directly into this unique, kind of anarchic economic theory he laid out in a press release. We need to spend a minute on this because it just perfectly sums up his whole anti-corporate thinking.
Absolutely. So to promote the album, he didn't just sell it. He temporarily made the new CD and his entire solo and Skid Roper back catalog available as free downloads on Amazon.
This is 2009, remember. The music industry is still freaking out about file sharing.
Exactly. And his reason for giving away his life's work, it was extraordinary.
He said he couldn't wait for Washington to fix the economy. He argued his bold move was necessary because giving away his music would actually overstimulate the economy.
His economic logic, Mojo Nixon style, was flawless, if completely backwards by normal standards. He claimed history proved that when people listen to his music, money immediately starts flowing towards, well, vices and entertainment.
Right.
He specifically listed money going to bartenders, racetracks, late-night greasy spoons, bail bondsmen, go-kart tracks, tractor pulls, football games, peep shows, and several black market vices. His conclusion.
Yeah.
His music causes itches that it usually takes some money to scratch.
It's the ultimate libertarian syndicalist argument for economic stimulus through, basically, music piracy and having a good time. And this wasn't just a stunt in 2009, it connected right back to his long-held beliefs about intellectual property.
Precisely. He was always an outspoken supporter of free file sharing. Way back in July 2000, right in the middle of the Napster wars, he publicly backed the movement, explicitly said he was not an asshole like Metallica.
Oh, direct shot.
Yeah, direct reference to Metallica's very public, very aggressive lawsuit against file sharing. Nixon just took the opposite stance on principle.
He really lived his philosophy. But his politics were complex, weren't they? He called himself a libertarian syndicalist anarchist. Yet despite all that anti-establishment talk, he publicly supported Barack Obama in 2012.
Which I think shows his anarchy wasn't just anti-government. It was more anti-convention, anti-hypocrisy within the system. He could embrace these radical anti-establishment labels, but still participate in conventional politics when he thought it served a purpose.
And we have to touch on the cultural world he inhabited, especially his, let's say, spiritual side. He was a member of the Church of the Subgenius. For anyone listening who isn't familiar, what is the Church of the Subgenius, and why is that connection so important for understanding Mojo?
The Church of the Subgenius is maybe the ultimate piece of American counterculture satire. It's basically a parody religion, started in 1979, designed to make fun of commercialism, organized religion, conformity, everything mainstream. Its main figure is this guy, often depicted, J.R. Bob Dobbs.
Okay.
And the core philosophy is based on achieving slack.
Slack. What does that mean here?
Slack is essentially freedom. It's the time, the spiritual energy you get back when you reject the usual demands of work, life, corporate society. It's the ultimate rejection of the whole rat race.
Right.
So for Nixon, whose entire career was about railing against the pinks, the conformists, and demanding irreverence, being part of the Subgenius Church just perfectly aligned with his lifelong mission to disrupt the system and celebrate absurdity. It was basically his philosophical home.
All this rich, wild history, this constant push and pull between anarchy and the mainstream, it naturally led to people wanting to document his life. A documentary film, The Mojo Manifesto, The Life and Times of Mojo Nixon, was actually announced way back in 2013.
Yeah, it took almost 10 years to finish. Finally premiered at South by Southwest in 2022, became available to stream in March 2023. The film really solidified his status as someone whose unique cultural impact deserved a serious, albeit appropriately irreverent look.
Which brings us, sadly, to the final cut-and call. Neill Kirby McMillan Jr., Mojo Nixon, died February 7th, 2024. He was 66.
Yeah. The cause was a cardiac event.
Okay.
And the setting where he passed away, that's where the story of his complicated career gets really, truly poignant. He died while he was on board the Outlaw country cruise. He was there as both a performer and a host. The ship was docked in San Juan, Puerto Rico at the time.
The ultimate anti-corporate icon dying while taking part in this highly curated, commercial, ticketed fan experience.
Wow.
And the final coincidence around his death is just genuinely eerie, tying back to his movie career.
It is. Just 2 days after Nixon passed away, James Van Eaton, the very drummer he played in Great Balls of Fire, also died. It was this completely surreal, final moment of connection in a life that was built on strange juxtapositions.
And fittingly, his life was celebrated by the music community he championed. There were memorial events, including an all-day concert down in Austin during the South by Southwest Festival in March 2024.
So when you look back at the sheer volume of work we've covered here, 6 albums with Skid Roper, 3 with the Toad Lickers, including that Jello Biafra one, plus multiple solo albums, it's just a relentless, uncompromising body of work spanning 4 decades, numerous media platforms.
This deep dive, it really shows us that Mojo Nixon's career was defined by this constant tension, right? Anti-establishment anarchy mixed with brilliant satire, yet he was still this savvy, engaged player on mainstream platforms like MTV, Hollywood, and the hugely centralized SiriusXM.
Exactly.
He mastered the system not by fitting in, but by using its loudest microphones to shout about his refusal to fit in.
He was the ultimate outsider who somehow got insider access without ever losing his edge or his dedication to finding that slack. He was yelling, "Burn down the malls," while simultaneously selling tickets to watch Demolition.
Precisely. He used the commercial system to undermine it right up until the very, very end.
So maybe let's leave you with this final thought on his legacy. Given that Mojo Nixon was this passionate public supporter of free music sharing, constantly attacked corporate control, called himself a libertarian syndicalist anarchist, what's the ultimate meaning of his final performance and his death happening on board a highly curated commercial cruise ship?
A controlled, packaged fan experience. You
Yeah.
need pre-bought tickets, centralized organization, the works.
What does that final setting tell us about the inevitable commodification of outlaw culture? Does the system always eventually absorb the rebel? Or maybe he was performing one last massive piece of subversive theater, bringing the anarchy right onto the high seas of commercialism, celebrating the community that grew around his rejection of the mainstream, right in the belly of the beast. That's the question worth mulling over.
Think about that. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the anarchic legacy of Mojo Nixon.